Thanks for listening to the Clive Barker Podcast. This is Ryan Danhauser, by the way, the only podcast dedicated to the works and worlds of Clive Barker. This is episode 142, where we go over some Clive Barker and Hellraiser book release news. We have a Kickstarter update. Our iPhone app is finally here, and the results of round 4 of the Duels of Blood. Did you vote? Get over to www.duelsofblood.com and vote in the final 4. Then our main topic was Clive Barker's A to Z of Horror, where we talk about the letters M for Mistress of the Night, N for Nightmare or Never Again, and O for Open Vein. Before we get to that, this episode is sponsored by Don Bertram's Celebrate Imagination. Don Bertram's Celebrate Imagination shop is dedicated to benefiting the Arts and Medicine program at Texas Children's Cancer Center. 50% of the proceeds will support the program for artist Don Bertram volunteers monthly. Please join us in donating to the program at Texas Children's Cancer Center. There's a link in the show notes and on the main website at clivebarkercast.com that will take you where you need to go to get one of his prints or art books and help this wonderful program. Any friend of Clive Barker's is a friend of ours, and we thank him for his support. Okay. Typically, here start out with the news on these episodes, these at least for these Duels of Blood episodes, and the news this time is really just all about pre-ordering books. The first one, we've got the Hellraiser Omnibus, which has that one is that's an omnibus of the first 20 issues of the Boom Hellraiser run, and
right,
and that's now available for pre-order.
Okay, so it's issues 1 through 20 and the Hellraiser Annual number 1. Was that the one that was written by Ben Meares?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, cool. We had him here in the podcast for to talk to us about the annual, I think, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah. So nice. It's 21 comics for $39.99, and it says here that it will ship after 27th of September of 2017.
Yeah, I think that'd be a really good way to read those, because the one thing that kind of bugged me about the Hellraiser comics is you'd read one in like 5 or 10 minutes, and then it's like, well, I'm waiting another month now for the next one.
Yeah,
they were.
I guess I was spoiled by back in the day, like in the 80s and stuff. Usually comic books would be almost like self-contained stories. But then, come the 90s, we started getting crossovers, and if you didn't buy all the titles for Spider-Man, then you wouldn't know the story that was going on, the crossover of the summer.
Yeah.
And I really started getting upset about that, because I was like, hey, I can only afford to subscribe to one of these comics, and now I only have one part of a story that goes on for like 4 different comic book runs. And I was like, all right, I guess it's interesting. They're just trying to make us buy all the comic books, and I understand how that's a tactic for them to make money. But,
Well, and if you kind of have a collecting sickness, then you want to try to avoid that stuff. At least that's what I do.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I always feel like I have to have the complete run of everything, and it's like...
Sure.
That's why it's like somebody gave me some X-Men one time, and it was like number 385 or whatever, and I'm like, oh, God...
Well, you don't have to read the other 300 and something, but,
Yeah.
You can just pick it up and jump on the ride and go from there. And eventually, if you want to buy some of the other ones, you can buy those Marvel Masterpiece Omnibus collected editions and stuff.
Yeah.
They usually have the best stories.
It's like, X-Men has so many characters. I mean, there are all these people. I don't know who any of these, I know like Wolverine and stuff, but...
Sure.
I don't know. I was never really, really big comic book person. I collected Clive Barker stuff, and I had Gru the Wanderer.
Yeah, Sergio Aragonés. I have a complete run of that.
Oh, you do?
It's wonderful. Yeah, I love it. And I even have that graphic novel that came out.
Oh, wow.
It's awesome. I love Gru.
I like Roberto.
Yeah, the dog. Yeah, I love that guy.
And it seemed like in the letters, people would always ask what's on the videotape, that he hangs around his neck, and he would always give different answers.
The videotape?
Yeah, Gru has a VHS tape hanging around his neck. like a medallion.
Oh, yeah, it's like a medallion. Yeah. Well, it's not a VHS tape, but it's just shaped with two holes on it, a rectangular shape, and I guess people would see that as a VHS tape.
Well, I think you said it was.
Really?
Yeah.
It looked more like a kind of a weird grommet kind of thing, right?
Yeah, I don't know.
Anyway.
I have those in the garage sale, too, for tomorrow.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, right. You're setting up a garage sale. All right. Well, good luck with that.
I have one issue that's before Referto. I think it's like number 22 or something like that.
I remember when he found Referto, he was thinking about eating him, and Referto was like, "Oh, I think he's looking at me like he likes me."
Oh, yeah. I think that was it's the first appearance of Referto, and it used to be worth a lot of money. That particular issue, but it's like I looked him up on eBay now, and it's like, oh, here's the first 30 issues for $20 or whatever. Right. So comic books, I guess, really have taken a dive. And also,
Aragonés used to be a big contributor to Mad Magazine.
Yeah,
before it grew.
And he did, what was it? TV's video or bloopers and practical jokes. He would do like these little animated people that would run around on the edges of the screen and stuff.
Right. Yeah, he would do that too on Mad Magazine. Sometimes you'd have little cartoons on the top of the pages, and they would continue from one page to the next. I always loved that stuff.
Yeah, he was pretty cool.
But in the topic of comic books, and since we were talking about Hellraiser, I just want to let people know that also another item on our news is that Hellraiser Anthology, which you may have gotten it. I hope you did, because it's great. It even has a story from Clive Barker in it. But Hellraiser Anthology Volume 2 is maybe coming out in the fall of this year or as late as 2018. So we earlier you reported as coming out in June, but I think that was just a misinterpretation, I guess, of what we were told.
Yeah, there was a newsletter that said, like, hey, we're getting a bunch of stuff ready for upcoming conventions. Well, there's a convention in June and another one in July, and then it said, things we're getting ready are like the, Hellraiser Anthology Volume 2, and they listed some other stuff, and the wording on that, could be taken to mean that, hey, maybe this will be ready in June. But I got corrected within the first 30 minutes that was posted that it's not going to be ready in June. It's going to be
but it is being worked on.
Fall,
so that's some good news there that they're working on a second volume of the anthology. So first volume was amazing.
It is amazing, and I don't feel bad that they're not on a monthly schedule like they would be if they were with
sure
or whatever. I think something cool like this, they can just take their time, and it doesn't have to
absolutely
to be regular. They can just do it whenever they want.
Also, another thing that they mentioned in the newsletter, if you looked at it, is that they hinted at the possibility of Pinocchio T-shirts.
Yeah.
Pinocchio is one of the characters in Hellraiser Anthology Volume 1 from a story created by Clive Barker. So if you have that, you know what we're talking about.
Yeah, so coming up pretty soon, you'll probably see those at conventions to buy. And a lot of this stuff you can also typically get on their store as well.
Yeah.
And even more Hellraiser news. The Leviathan... The story of Hellraiser and Hellbound Hellraiser 2 coffee table companion book is now available to pre-order from their site.
Yes. So we previously reported on the upcoming book for Leviathan. And finally it's here. It's available for pre-order. It's a limited edition book, a companion to the documentary that some of you out there may have. Again, it has exclusive art and behind-the-scenes photos. It has a foreword by Image Animation co-founder and FX artist Jeff Portis, who kind of came up with the makeup for Pinhead. It has an afterword by Paul Kane, who was in our podcast a few times.
Yeah.
The cover art is going to be the same as the 3-disc DVD set by Graham Humphreys. And it's a British release, so the pre-order is £24.99, which I think we mentioned this before. It comes down to $30 something dollars.
Yeah,
I think. Yeah. So it ships internationally, and yes, you can check it out on the Cult Screening site, which is www.cultscreenings.co.uk/Leviathan-book, and that's it. So you go to that website and you will be able to pre-order it.
And like a lot of stuff that we've been talking about lately, it's a limited run, so there are only 1,000 in production. So if this is something you want to get, probably do it fairly soon.
I am getting this. It's coming out in August 2017. So, I already got myself a pre-order.
Oh,
so,
awesome.
Yeah, because I just love this work so much, and it seems like it's going to have a bunch of stuff you're not going to be able to see anywhere else. So.
All right. Well, yeah, you'll have to tell us what it's like in August.
Sure. Are you thinking about getting it too, or?
I am. I'm a little short on money right now, so if
Sure.
it's still around, and also, actually, this isn't even in our notes, but Phil and Sarah just announced that they're getting ready to ship Volume 4 of Imaginer.
Oh, excellent! That's good news for everybody out there who's collecting those.
But for me, it's like, oh man, I still don't have 3 yet.
Right.
And I still want to. I want to get 3, and then I want to get 4. Now I have to get 4, and that's like $200 when you put.
Well, the good thing is that they'll be available for a while after they come out. I mean, wasn't there I know this was back when Rob was still with us on the podcast, but I believe not too long ago they still had some copies of number 1, maybe just a few.
Yeah,
but they were still available.
They were selling bundles of 1 and 2 and stuff.
Right. So maybe you still have a few months to buy it. Although, obviously, I would urge everybody else who's buying it, these things come out, they're only made in – how many are there?
I think also 1,000.
1,000, right? Yeah, it sounds like that. So 1,000, they don't really come up that often on eBay that I can tell. So whoever buys these things are collectors, and they probably will hold on to them. So, I mean, if you can buy it, if you can pre-order it, go ahead and do it.
Yeah. And speaking of pre-order, Guantlet Press's Everville limited edition is also available for pre-order now. And sorry, I didn't get the links into the show notes here, but but that one is. It ranges from $35 to the more basic one all the way to $300 for the lettered edition.
Right. So pre-order is open now from the Guantlet Press, and their website is gauntletpress.com/product/Everville, and you can go there and see. Obviously, the cheaper version is $35. And the most expensive version is $300. So Caitlin R. Kiernan will write an introduction, and Josh Boone will write an afterword. Clive Barker will sign both editions, and the lettered edition is also signed by Caitlin Kiernan and Josh Boone.
I thought it was weird that they had put, if you go to the website where they're selling it, they put signed limited edition of what is considered a sequel to The Great and Secret Show.
Considered?
Why? I know. I think it's.
That's weird, right? It's a weird wording.
There's no debate,
agree.
As far as I know.
Absolutely. It's totally a sequel. Yeah. I see it now. I opened the website. It says, considered a sequel to The Great and Secret Show. Everville will be published as a signed limited edition with cover art by Clive Barker. So, signed numbered edition is $75. Optional slipcase is $35. Signed tray case edition is $300.
Yeah.
So and they say here,
not a bad deal. It's a big book.
Wait, I think the $35 is just for the slipcase, not the book.
Yeah, it's weird because their website says that's kind of what it looks like, but their website says that the book is from $35 to $300. So that might that's a little
when you pick the option, when you pick the option, it says optional slipcase is $35. Yeah. So it's either $75 or $300 for the tray case edition.
So you would spend $75 and then buy a tray case for it for another $35. So you'd be spending $105 if you wanted.
That's right. But isn't this one the one that offers like payment plans for their books? I think so.
Right. Yeah.
I guess. Anyway, so
I love
they
the
also
cover on that though too. It's a Clive Barker painting, which is nicer than the seashell that we got in the U.S. first edition.
That's right. Yeah, I always thought that cover is a little bare bones.
Yeah. Well, in the mailbox on the Great and Secret Show.
I much prefer the paperback and hardcover editions from England because they're the ones that have those fancy, very complex covers, painted covers. Yeah.
I have the one from the Great and Secret Show, and I love that. It's so much better than the mailbox one.
Right, with the Jaffe stepping on a snake and throwing lightning bolts out of his fingers and stuff. That's amazing.
We got to see, I think was it a print of that in Clive Barker's studio house. We got to see. I don't think it was an original painting, right? It was like a print of a large... You're talking about the one that has Groucho Marx and stuff? Yeah, Great and Secret Show.
Oh, that's not the one I'm talking about.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah,
I'm talking about the cover that it's yellow and it's got all these like ornaments and faces of characters in like a frame around the image, and then the center of the image is a rectangle and it's got Jaffe throwing
like
lightning.
Much later, like 90s paperback edition, isn't it?
Maybe. I'll have to check that. But anyway, so the Great and Secret Show edition from Guantlet Press sold out 6 months before publication. So considering that, if you're a collector and if you want to get this, that's coming out on the winter of 2017, you may want to jump in the pre-order this summer.
And then by the time it comes out, you'll probably forget that you ordered it. That's what always happens to me. But
then you'll have a nice surprise in the mail.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes, exactly. And then you can tell your wife, I can't even remember when I ordered that. It was a long time ago.
And then she'll say, maybe you're buying too many things. Just kidding. So I did have an ex-girlfriend who did not understand my collection of Clive Barker. She always would tell me like, oh, you bought that thing? I wouldn't pay a cent for that. And I was like, oh, that's a nice thing to say. Yeah, I guess that's why she's my ex-girlfriend.
I wouldn't pay a cent for that.
Yeah.
I didn't buy it for you.
Right, exactly, right? Yeah. It's not like Homer Simpson buying Marge Simpson a bowling ball for her birthday.
With his name engraved on it. Yeah.
So another thing is that if you're a fan of Next Testament, the Next Testament novel is coming out very soon.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm interested to see how this is going to be different from the comics. I mean, it would really need to be fleshed out quite a bit to be a novel.
I agree. I think the story was in the comic story didn't have a lot to go by in the sense that the main protagonists they discover this information that can help them defeat Wick, and then they have to go to this church in the middle of America, and then they fall into a few traps along the way. Meanwhile, Wick is causing havoc and meeting people, and then he goes to – is it San Francisco that he goes to at the end?
I think –
L.A.? He's in L.A.
I think it is L.A., right, because it's –
yeah. But anyway, so there's a novelization that's done by Mark Miller, and it's going to come out on June 1st, 2017, so next month.
Yeah, that's just a couple of weeks from now as we're recording this.
Yeah, coming out, being published by Earthling Publications. You can get it in one of 3 editions. So the gift edition is 350 copies signed by Mark Miller for $45. The deluxe edition is 100 copies signed by Mark Miller, Clive Barker, and F. Paul Wilson. Of course, Clive Barker is the artist who created Wick, father of colors, because he painted Mark Miller as Wick once, and then they both came up with the idea to come up with a backstory for this character that they had just created together.
And originally, Mark Miller had said, "Hey, I want to co-write a novel with you about this." And Clive Barker said, "Why don't you make it a comic book instead?"
Right. I'm sorry, I'm not exactly sure who F. Paul Wilson is. Do you have any idea?
I know he's an author, but I'm not sure why he's signing this. Maybe he wrote an introduction or something?
He wrote an introduction. It says here, with an introduction by prolific author F. Paul Wilson. So I'm just wondering, anyway. So
also, this is a super limited run. I mean, 350 copies for the for the basic one.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and then 100, and then 15. So that's 500 copies for the whole, or 400 and
I know
465 copies of the whole book.
Consider that the 15 copies signed by Mark Miller, Clive Barker, and F. Paul Wilson costs $500.
Yeah,
for a book. So I'm sure there'll be people out there who are going to buy it, but please let us know if the pages are made of gold.
Yeah. Well,
I'm just joking.
There's always these lettered ones. And that 15's not even all the letters in the alphabet.
Yeah, that's right.
But yeah, the $45 doesn't sound too terrible to me. I mean, I'm curious about it. I may get this one.
Sure thing. All right. Well, I'll get the Leviathan book, and you can get this one.
All right. Sounds good. If there's any left, I should hurry up on that.
Yeah, that's right. Let's see if there's any mention of how many pages this is. I don't think there is yet. So I guess we'll figure it out.
They must have. I mean, they must already. I think they've already given out copies to reviewers, because there were some. If you go to Earthling's website, they have some like blurbs from reviews on there.
Well, for the graphic novel version, yes.
Oh, is that what it is?
Yeah, it says praise for Next Testament, parentheses, graphic novel version.
Okay.
So let's see. Maybe we can get a PDF copy from Seraphin. Who knows?
Yeah.
That'd be interesting. I could review it.
Yeah, and so the Kickstarter, we actually have we were going to record this episode yesterday, which would have been a shame because we have a really big Kickstarter update today.
Okay.
The iPhone iOS app is finished. It's up there on the website. You can download it right now. Awesome.
This was a big headache to come up with. We had to do the graphics, and then we had to change the name, and then someone didn't change the name, and there was a problem with it, and they were like, you have to get some permission from Clive Barker's company that you are not leveraging off of Clive Barker's name. And we got a document that said, yes, they have our permission to be called the Clive Barker Podcast. And so finally it's done.
Yeah. Yeah, it looks good. I think they didn't quite use they asked for all that specific art, but when you look at it, it doesn't really use all the art that you provided.
Okay.
So I'm not exactly.
Have you downloaded it?
Yeah,
I'm sure you have.
I did on the iPhone and the iPad to look at it.
How does it look like?
Oh, it looks nice. Yeah.
Awesome. Do you see the picture of Joey there?
No, that one didn't. And that's why I got the iPad one, because I thought, oh, maybe it's on there. But what it does is it takes kind of the Pinhead and Pelican picture and sort of puts that in all the different places,
That's good, yeah.
Aspect ratios and stuff.
And I have to give a shout out to Matt Harpold, who came up with the original banner graphics for our podcast, which is really, really nice. A really nice job that he did with it.
He probably didn't expect it would get bent and stretched and used in so many
photoshopped. Yeah. I'm sorry, Matt. I've been changing a lot of the image that you created, but hey, it's serving a good purpose.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's exciting. I've been working on this isn't really a Kickstarter goal, but I've been working on putting a lot of our episodes onto YouTube. And so that's taken my time that I was originally, setting aside for transcribing episodes. So
Right. Yeah, and I got a pair of kittens, and it's kind of eating up my time too.
Right. Yeah, because they're not just kittens; they were in some danger. Right. They had heat stroke, and they were.
Well, they didn't have heat stroke, but they were outside in Phoenix, where it gets up to 96, 100, 105. So
I would have heat stroke if I was outside in that.
Oh, sure. Yeah. I imagine that. I mean, I keep telling you, we couldn't live in more opposite sides of the United States here, because it's like I'm in Arizona, which is always hot and dry. You're in Alaska, and sometimes I'm at the pool and you're shoveling snow. And
I know.
It's amazing. Like I don't know. But I imagine Alaska is a really beautiful a state full of wonderful natural parks. So
yeah, well, and it's also people forget that it's sunny all night in the summertime, so you kind of forget to go to sleep. So that sort of makes up for the winter almost.
And Alaska has recreational marijuana, which is also a good thing.
Right, yeah, that's true.
Anyway.
We're still trying to figure out the laws on that, though. I mean, because people just jump ahead and start putting up businesses, and then the businesses are getting shut down because they're.
Do you remember when there was
laws that don't exist yet?
Right, and also marijuana is still illegal at the federal level, so it's a cash business because banks won't accept the money. But anyway, but you remember there was a show called Alaska State Troopers, kind of like an Alaskan version of Cops. Mm-hmm. And at one point, I think they canceled the show because people started wanting to be in Alaska State Troopers. I remember a few episodes where they would stop a car and the guy would come out, "Oh my God, hey, I'm in Alaska State Troopers, woo!" Yeah. And the guy would be like, "All right, settle down, sir."
Yeah.
And they would actually celebrate it, and it was just ridiculous. And I guess now
the troopers were getting tired of it too because it was on for a long time. Right,
yeah. Anyway, that was a funny aside. We also did an audio commentary for Gods and Monsters, the Oscar-winning movie. So it wasn't part of our Kickstarter, but we did it anyway.
Yeah. We're looking for other Clive Barker movies. There aren't really now. There's just a couple that he made an appearance in, and that's it.
Maybe we'll do Sleepwalkers next. We'll have to consider that.
Yeah. Oh.
Send us suggestions of what audio commentary you'd like us to do that we haven't done already. That'd be cool.
And another thing that I've been working on, or that just occurred, to us because of the app, it has a section for videos, and typically I haven't been putting our video content into the RSS feed for the podcast because you can get them on YouTube and we advertise them on Facebook, and so I just figured we don't. But since that's there, we might as well start loading it up with all the videos that we've made. That we have all of your unboxing videos that you did, and we've got video reviews for games and.
On our BarkerCast YouTube channel. You've been doing a great job, along with Libsyn, uploading all those episodes with a featured image that becomes like the thumbnail for the video. And you can listen to our episodes on YouTube as well now. Yeah. So if you want to do that, if it's something that it's easier for you to do, then you can go ahead and do it. And they're probably going to be there forever now, Unlike some servers that may go down, at least YouTube, it's going to be around for a while.
It's a little tricky putting those back in with Libsyn because they're already in the RSS feed, and I have to go into the settings and be really careful that I set the release date to the exact same date that it was released before, or else they get put out of order. Like it'll say number 15 is our newest episode.
Right. We had that problem a couple of times.
Yeah.
So,
to make sure I'm not it's not like 2 a.m. and I'm really sleepy.
So, what do you want to do next? Do you want to go into Duels of Blood, or do you want to talk about A through Z of Horror?
Yeah, let's do Duels of Blood. It's getting shorter now because we're getting near the end. So we had only 4 matches this time.
Yeah, we're gonna go through this like a breeze. And you were telling me before we started this that hey, the bad guys win.
I know. What is going on? What's wrong? Okay, what is wrong with you people? It's time to berate our listeners a little bit.
Well, I don't know if I should berate them. It's just that I like these characters as well. I mean, for example, Candy Quackenbush in the Aberrat bracket was squaring off against Mendelssohn Shape, the 1-foot assassin. From Aberrat, and he won with 55% of the votes.
Yeah, but I mean, Mendelssohn Shape, he didn't last very long in the series.
I forgot what happened to him. What happened to him? Was it like he was trying to get Candy, and then she turned on the light, and she summoned the Sea of Isabella?
Yeah, well, and he screwed up and didn't catch her, right? Or he didn't. and I think that he was killed by Christopher Carrion.
Oh, okay, I see.
I think, and then
yeah, it's been a while since I've read Abarat 2, Days of Madness, Nights of War.
Yeah. So and then the next one we've got Hepexamendios versus Pio Pa, and again it's almost the same percentage. Hepexamendios beat Pio Pa.
Yeah, I guess, well, that one kind of goes like the book in a way.
Yeah, right.
Hepexamendios is a god, and
right.
A very striking character in the Book of the Magica, and he's basically the patriarchal god that most people worship without even knowing that it's Hepexamendios.
Yeah. And so that also means that in our next round we're going to have a really bizarre pairing, Mendelssohn Shape versus Hepexamendios.
Yeah, and I think I mentioned before the origin of the name Hepexamendios.
Right, yeah.
I think it was something, what was it about? It was like...
well, we know Amen and Dios. Amen is like...
Yeah, the hapex was a word that only appears once in a book or something like that. So... Yeah, it was something like that. But anyway,
so means like it is done, right? Or it's something that people say at the end of prayers,
right?
And obviously, Dios is God,
right? So that was the other match, and then on the other bracket, the art books. This time it wasn't the bad guy that won because there were no bad guys in this bracket.
Right.
It was
all the bad guys were already eliminated.
The little squid Zarapushu versus Harry D'Amour, and Harry D'Amour won with 58% of the votes. So, hey, here's to Harry D'Amour, who, one of Clive Barker's most prolific and characters that appears in a lot of stories and a lot of books. Played by Scott Bakula, which is also a very personable image to use for Harry D'Amour. So.
And next we've got Mahogany versus Jacqueline F. And, of course, the bad guy again, Mahogany won.
Yay, for Vinnie Jones.
Yeah. I mean, you had said last time that in real life she would probably just turn him into a piece of furniture.
Yeah.
But
exactly.
So the weird thing about this is now we're going to have Harry D'Amour squaring off against Mahogany, which is kind of right up Harry's alley. I mean, that's the kind of characters that he would be up against.
Yeah, and you're going to have poor Mendelssohn Shape versus Hepexamendios.
Oh, God. He's got no chance at all.
It may square down to Harry D'Amour versus Hepexamendios. And if it does, it's going to be very, very interesting to see what's going to come out of there.
Yeah. And, I've been kicking around this idea. I haven't told you about it yet. But at the end, if we might have a bonus round with the winner of this bracket versus Julia, just to see what happens.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that would be interesting because that was last year's winner.
Yeah. Julia Cotton, of course, from
Hellraiser. And Hellbound.
Yeah, and the Hellbound Heart.
So that's an excellent idea. We should probably do that, depending on whoever wins, and it's gonna be interesting whether it's Harry D'Amour or Hepexamendios or even Mahogany. Who knows?
Yeah. So do you think it might end up being? Well, I think
it may end up being Harry D'Amour, to be honest.
Yeah, I think so too. So. Yeah, I think so too.
I don't know who I'm going to vote for, to be honest. I have to seriously consider it for the next round. But this round ended May 13, and now the next round is probably going to start. When is it going to start? Like this Sunday?
Yes, right, exactly. Sunday morning,
the 21st.
Yeah, if I can get it together. I've got I'm managing a garage sale, but.
Yeah.
That's my hope. It may end up being delayed by a little bit, but that's what I'm going to try to do.
Okay.
Actually, it's not that hard. I mean, it's only going to be 2 matches, right?
That's right.
The Final Four, yeah. And we've already got the graphic for the Final Four, so I can just pull that back up from last year.
So it may start on Sunday the 21st and then maybe on June the 4th.
Yeah. It's like just short of 2 weeks because it's on a Thursday morning.
And again, you can vote as many times as you want every 5 minutes and, vote for your favorite. No flesh shall be spared.
Yeah. We had a really close call with this because the website was down like an hour ago when we were, just when we were putting together the episode and this, the notes and.
Yeah. Thanks, Bluehost.
I know.
No, I'm just kidding. Bluehost keeps our website up, and I guess sometimes there may be some issues, some outage, but luckily it wasn't too long. So I hope if you wanted to vote that you didn't find any sort of error with our website.
Well, and I tweeted at them about it, and I have no idea if from our BarkerCast Twitter, and I have no idea if that caused them to fix it or if it just would have been fixed anyway.
Okay.
They didn't reply as far as I know, but it's up and just in time. So
yeah, I looked at the Twitter that you sent me, and it was like there was other people complaining about it for sure. So yeah. All right, so that was Duels of Blood again, the round 2, volume 2, round 4.
Yeah. So and then round 5 is going to be the final 4, right? They call that the final 4 when there's 4 teams left, or characters in this case.
So it's going to be round 5 out of 6.
My lack of sports knowledge.
It's okay. You don't have to know a lot about sports, but you do know a lot about movies, right?
Somewhat. Yeah.
Okay. Well, that brings us into the Clive Barker's A to Z of horror. So tonight we're going to talk about the next 3 letters of the alphabet, which is M, N, and O.
Yeah.
So M is for Mistress of the Night.
Yeah, and this was the same, obviously the same on the TV series as it was for the book, which was mainly about Barbara Steele. Well,
it says here that she was born in Liverpool, but close to Liverpool, but then in an interview she said she was born in Ireland, I believe.
Oh.
Yeah, that's right. Let's see.
So
Let me look up.
Is she British? Did she? What made her start starring in so many Italian films?
Well, back then, there were a lot of Italian productions. There was the whole Cinecittà in Rome and other production places like that. They did a lot of movies, and a lot of Americans work with them. Hollywood worked a lot with co-producing movies with them. So eventually they would also hire American actors because they were recognizable and they could just put them in their movie and dub over them. And so that's what they did.
Prior to this, to reading this book, the only thing I knew about her movie Black Sunday was the clips that I saw from it in a King Diamond video called Sleepless Nights.
Ah, I see.
You see the mask with the nails kind of looking like they're swirling.
Yeah, like an Iron Maiden kind of thing.
Yeah, there was that and like the bonfire and stuff like that.
Yeah, she was born in Birkenhead, Cheshire, England, near Liverpool. She studied at the Chelsea Art School in Paris at the Sorbonne University. So in this one, this movie was directed by Mario Bava, and it's called Black Sunday, and they talk a lot about this movie here. They dedicate almost an entire chapter to Barbara Steele and Black Sunday, and then they go over some of the other movies that she did. And one of the things about this series, the A to Z of horror, that I think if you take any message out of this is what Clive Barker mentioned in the first episode that we were talking about, is that this is more like a collection of things that recommendations from Clive Barker that he would like people to look at.
Yeah.
And so with that said, you've been doing something, which is you've been going through some of these movies and you actually watch them in preparation for these episodes that we do. And so one of the reasons why we ended up postponing recording this episode was because I wanted to see Black Sunday, and so I did. And I had a really good time watching Black Sunday.
I watched it too last night. I saw it. Thursday night I think it was.
Mm-hmm. And it was a pretty good movie, a black and white film, of course. Interesting thing was it was directed by Mario Bava, but it was also the photography was also done by Mario Bava. So so he also did photography for this film, and there's a lot of beautiful shots and beautiful framing of the scenes in this film. I thought
there were some interesting shots, like up from the bushes, looking up at people and stuff like that. I was kind of noticing that you don't normally see.
Yeah. You see some great predator angle shots. I think that's what they're called, when the camera is like slightly askew and looking down from like between a couple of bushes and stuff. It's kind of like what the monster would see when it's looking at its prey, right?
Yeah.
So it kind of adds some tension, cinematic tension to the shot.
Do you remember that there was this lady that worked at the inn, and she was running out? She had to go out and milk the cow, and she was like,
the girl.
She was really scared, and she didn't want to. And he did close-up shots on her the whole way through past the cemetery and through the bushes and to milk the cow, and she's looking around and then she goes back, and it's like I kept thinking, oh, she's gonna die.
Yeah, obviously, something's gonna happen.
Yeah,
it's meant to give you that tension, right?
Yeah.
So this movie takes place in 1830s Moldavia, and it opens up with this kind of like a witch trial. Mm-hmm. But she's not only a witch; she's going to turn into a vampire later in the film. But so it's a witch called Asa.
Yeah, right.
And she is sentenced by her own brother, who is a Grand Inquisitor. And this reminds me of another movie that I saw. I think it's what's the name of that thing? It's an MST3K episode. It's about this head that's this one guy. He's a sorcerer or something, and his head is cut and stuck in a box and buried. And then a couple of centuries later, it is discovered by this girl in a field. I forgot the name of that thing, but anyway, it reminded me a little bit of that because it also opens up with kind of like a trial scene, and some sorcerer is being like executed, and then he's going to come back after a few generations. But in this one, of course, it's a witch played by Barbara Steele. And
there's also a warlock character, too, that is sort of her companion. Or
Javuto. Yeah. Or Javutic. I think it depends on whether you see the Italian or the English version.
Oh, really?
Yeah. But I think that the opening scene where she's being sentenced to die with that mask of Satan, which is actually the original title of the movie. It's called La Maschera del Demonio, which means the mask of the demon or the mask of Satan. And this reminded me a lot, and it seems like it might be an influence for Clive Barker in coming up with Nyx and Lord of Illusions, because he's also like bound with a mask that is stuck to his face.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and I think it doesn't stop there, because you've also got a dead vampire character that gets revived when somebody drips blood on her.
Right, yeah.
So we've got Hellraiser too.
Sure, exactly. Yeah. I also came up with that. I forgot to put it down here, but yes, the few drops of blood from like a cut hand fall onto the witch's corpse, and it kind of brings her back. And there's even a scene where she says, "Your blood brought me back." Yeah,
and she's like, "And I'll need all of your blood." Somebody else.
It reminded me of Julia in Hellraiser 2, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely.
And there was one thing, I watched the English dubbed version, and there was something that was bugging me about the opening scene where she was being condemned and she's hanging on that cross, and they're about to put the mask on her, and then she curses all the people there.
Mm-hmm.
When she's yelling out her curses, they matched her lips perfectly. And most of the rest of the movie was dubbed in other languages. But why was her curse in English?
Because maybe she spoke English. Maybe she didn't know how to speak Italian. That's the thing with sometimes American actors who play in other movies, is that sometimes they say their lines in English because they don't know how to speak German or Italian or whatever the production is. And so when they're dubbing, all the other characters come out a little weird because they're being dubbed in English, but the actors are actually coming out better because they were actually delivering lines in English before they were dubbed.
So in the Italian version, was she was speaking English and some other person was dubbing her voiceover in Italian?
Probably. Yeah, that sounds like it would be what they would do. Yeah.
So it seems like there's really no perfect version of this movie to watch then.
I guess not. Unless yeah. Well, there's some weird things though. I mean, for example, this is unrelated, but most people don't know that Will Ferrell actually did a movie in Spanish, and he actually speaks his lines in that movie in phonetic Spanish.
Yeah, right. I remember that was like some project that he wanted to do, and I think he created it, didn't he?
Yeah, I think so. And he did it. And I think to this day that he doesn't really speak Spanish. He just kind of learned the lines kind of phonetically.
Like El Casa de mi Papa or something like that?
Yeah, Casa de mi Padre or something like that. Yeah, the house of my father.
Yeah.
So I think he did something like that, yeah. Oh, well,
With this movie, there's something that I'm not as I used to be really kind of anti-religious, but there's something still that kind of bugs me a little bit about movies that in essence say, yeah, you remember the Inquisition? Well, we were justified for doing that because these people were these horrible witches and monsters and stuff.
Exactly. And it's easier in movies to sympathize with the witches when they're really not evil. But in this case, this Asa and Javuto, they're really, really evil. They kill all sorts of people. And you can imagine that they were executed because they were evil. So,
yeah.
But still, Inquisition was also evil. And, I mean, in real life, it was really evil, too. They were torturing people left and right. They were, like, sitting them down in, like, boiling hot metal chairs, and they were making them sit inside these Iron Maidens and closing the door on them and
jamming,
just doing,
like, hot metal pins into their fingers and stuff.
Yeah, and introducing, like, these heavy masks and locking the people inside them and having them, parade humiliated in a village. And those were all horrible things that were done. I mean, I've seen an exhibition of capital instruments and torture implements. The injustice of man to man is really, really almost infinite.
Yeah.
There are even these things called these. They look like these pears made out of metal that kind of open when you twist a screw, and they start opening up in three parts. And they start opening and opening and opening, and they would stick these in orifices of people, and they would start twisting the screw and opening them up until they became so big that the person would start tearing. Yeah. And those things were just horrible, and the Inquisition was a really terrible, dark place.
And I guess for that kind of reason, I also I know there was like the movie The Witch, right? And there's a TV show called Salem, and I haven't watched any of those things because I'm just imagining that it's going to be like, oh, yeah, there really were witches back then. So what they did was justified.
Yeah, so M for Mistress of the Night, like you said, covers Barbara Steele's career. Not extensively, but pretty detailed. And they talk about when she switched from Rank to 20th Century Fox. And they tried turning her into a blonde, which didn't really work. Yeah, she did. She was really unhappy, and they said she fled in the middle of shooting a movie. She fled back to Europe. They said that she spent most of her time sitting on the beach waiting for the phone to ring, and she doesn't know how the studio got it in their head to make her a blonde, but this is something that they did. She said, I felt like a total lie as a blonde because it didn't suit my nature, which is pretty dark, and I said to myself, I'm out of here. Yeah. But she's worked with several awesome directors. I mean, she's worked with Jonathan Demme in Caged Heat. She worked with David Cronenberg. It was Shivers. She played Bets in Shivers. Yeah, she also worked with Roger Corman in Pit and the Pendulum.
Oh, right. Yes, right. Yeah.
Part of the famous Poe cycle that Roger Corman did, which really made him a lot of money. That's how he kind of created New World Pictures, was thanks to the success of the Poe cycle movies. So
I did see that one. I remember that. I remember seeing Pit and the Pendulum. I always wondered when I would rent those movies is like, how do they cram such a tiny little short story into like a 90-minute movie? But they always managed.
They do. So in this movie, the funny thing is that she plays a dual role. Because Asa, the resurrected vampire witch, she puts a curse on her brother's side of the family, the Grand Inquisitor, who had her killed. And she says that, all your descendants are going to be cursed and your family is going to be cursed for the generations. And then every few generations, one of the women in the family would be kind of just like her. And if she could wake up and take possession of that body, she would be reincarnated as Asa. And in this case, the girl is Katya, and she is, of course, played by Barbara Steele. It's kind of confusing because
it is.
At some point, you're not sure if the person who's talking is actually supposed to be the girl or the witch, and I think that's on purpose, of course, because they're obviously trying to introduce that confusion. But
there was one where Katya, or it was either I didn't know which one it was, but she was like, "Oh, don't believe silly superstitions about paintings." And I'm like,
right.
Which one of you is this supposed to be? I thought it was Katya.
Yeah. Well, she was also in Piranha in 1978. Oh, wow. I think she was with Joe Dante, I think. Mm-hmm. And yes, I mean, she's pretty good in this movie. I love this film, and it's basically in quick, broad strokes. Like I said, 1830s Moldavia. There's a couple of doctors that are going to they're traveling and they're in a coach, and the guy says, "Oh, go through the forest," and the coach man says, "Oh no, I don't want to go in the forest. It's haunted by the witch." And it's like, "Oh, here's a coin for your troubles." And of course they go into the forest and a wheel comes off the wagon, and
right in front of the mausoleum where Asa is buried.
Yeah, and so they go in there, and they obviously there's a giant bat that's obviously made of rubber. Yeah. And the doctor has to fight him off with his cane and shoots him with a gun, which I thought is a really overkill. But
and when he's swinging his cane around, he smashes the crucifix that Asa's supposed to be looking at all the time to keep her from waking up.
Right, because I thought that was really clever. The witch is put inside a mausoleum that has a tiny window. And then over the sarcophagus is this crucifix. And so whenever the light comes out of the window, the crucifix is projecting its shadow onto the window. And so she can always see that cross. Her corpse will always be under the influence of that cross. And then, of course, like you said, he breaks the crucifix. And then for some godforsaken reason, he decides to, oh, look, she's got the mask on. Oh, it's a witch from the tradition. I'm going to take the mask off. And he puts his hand in there and he cuts his finger, and the blood drips onto the witch. And obviously, hell breaks loose. And
he did a lot to let her go. I mean, he didn't. Yeah. He didn't. He stole something from her. We called it a memento. It was like some kind of a little
icon. Yeah, like an icon with a picture of St. George killing the dragon.
And he took her mask off, and he smashed the cross with his cane by accident.
So much for being a smart doctor, right?
Yeah,
he's pretty rude and destructive in the way that he looks into the ruins that belong to someone else.
All superstition aside, I mean, he was really a vandal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. But obviously the story has to go on, and this story is actually based. The screenplay for this movie was based on a story by Nicholas Gogol called V. I'm not sure what that means, but it's VIY. So that's the name of the story by Nicholas Gogol. I think I've read a couple of stories by Nicholas Gogol.
Is that
Russian?
Oh, Russian. Okay.
Yeah, I believe he's Russian. Very, very interesting film. And I have seen other movies by Mario Bava, which I recommend. So, Barbara Steele. I guess this was Clive Barker's recommendation for Mistress of the Night.
Yeah.
As go watch Black Sunday or go watch Barbara Steele in any of the other movies like Kill Baby Kill, where Scorsese called it his masterpiece, Mario Bava's masterpiece. Like I said, Barbara Steele was also in Shivers with David Cronenberg, and Pit and the Pendulum with Roger Corman, and Piranha. So
yeah,
she was also in Fellini's 8.5 and Caged Heat.
Wow.
So, and she was also in Dark Shadows. So she was a very prolific actress in a lot of cool stuff where she always has this like dark side to her, right?
Yeah. Right, and in this movie, she was literally playing two different characters, and one was the dark side and the other was not, I guess.
Yeah. There's some interviews with her where she says that the women that I played were usually very powerful women, and they suffered for it. You saw these powerful women, usually adulteresses, full of lust and greed, playing out all this repressed stuff. And then in the end, I always seemed to get it. And there was always this sort of morality play, this sort of final payoff. And that was very consoling to everybody, because the Dark Goddess can't just go on wreaking hubris and havoc ad infinitum. She gets her comeuppance too. And then she says that also she doesn't really understand why her fans liked her so much. She doesn't really understand what her character evokes in people. But I think it's pretty clear. I mean, we not only like women who look innocent and beautiful, but I think, and I speak for myself, I don't know, it depends, it's a matter of taste, but there's always like this part of lust and desire that also is attracted to like dangerous women or dangerous women or women who break the norm, women who are have a dark streak to them, So I think that's pretty understandable.
I remember when I was in a science fiction class in college, and the professor was talking about Neuromancer, and he said, if you just kind of look at this from the point of view of an author writing a story for adolescent boys, he says you've got this character that's this strong female character that's leading this guy around and on this sexual adventure because she's really precocious or whatever he says that's every adolescent boy's dream, is to have some girl that's like, I'm gonna take control and bring you on this sort of sexual adventure.
Mm-hmm. There's also a quote from Tim Burton. He also talks about Barbara Steele, and in response to what she said here, where she says, I've met a lot of my fans, and a lot of them are completely charming, but I don't know what it is I represent to them. It's a mystery to me. And Tim Burton says, it's funny that people see it as kind of scary and dark and psychotic, when in fact everybody has that duality. The healthiest people are the ones who explore it. She's had the opportunity to do that on film, which is a really healthy way of doing it. She's got an incredible strength and yet a mystery, which is something you don't learn in acting school. It's just something you have or you don't have, and she has it. So, I guess, like I said, it's attractive. Women who transgress, women who are different, women who have this mystery to them, they're attractive to men. And even if they're not the most wholesome of people or characters, when it's a movie, it's a fantasy. So you can indulge in it in a healthy way. You can say, oh, look at that witch. Look at what she's doing. Oh, she's drinking blood. Oh, my God. Stuff like that. And you can indulge in that sort of thing because it's a fantasy. Obviously, if you're in love with a woman who kills and drinks blood and acts like a witch, then there's something there that you may have to look into. But,
Well, if you're interested in seeing this, it's on in seeing the TV show version. It's on episode 6, and it's the very first section of episode 6. And episode 6, I think the episode is called Beyond Good and Evil.
I encourage people to go see it.
Yeah. So our next one, N, is for Nightmare. It seems like for some reason we kind of get roped into talking about Nightmare on Elm Street a lot even though this is the Clive Barker podcast. But
well, it's a pretty iconic movie. It kind of defines. It's one of the most successful franchises in the horror genre.
One thing I really found interesting about this particular section is that they had said that Wes Craven had originally written a lot of jokes for Freddy into the original Nightmare on Elm Street, and then they got edited out to make the movie scarier. And so in the sequels, they brought all that stuff back with all of his jokes and stuff. And so I had always felt like the sequels weren't true to the original because they made Freddy jokey, and he wasn't that way in the beginning. So it's like, what do I know, I guess?
Well, I think that Wes Craven would agree with you on that because he wasn't involved in those except maybe Dream Warriors. I think he co-wrote and co-produced. Yeah. And then New Nightmare. He wrote it and produced it, right? And directed it.
I didn't like New Nightmare because I felt like it was too self-aware, and I had this weird, I had just this impression of Wes Craven writing a script where he's sort of putting himself up on a pedestal, as the horror master. I can make a movie that's so good that it comes to life.
I think I see what you mean. It's a little meta. In the sense that it's like, what if Freddy Krueger came out in the real world and when the world where Nightmare on Elm Street movies exist, and they kind of manifest it. But in a way, I always saw it as kind of like the same premise as like The Forbidden by Clive Barker with Candyman. It's like, what if enough people started believing into this myth that it came to life?
But then imagine if Clive Barker wrote The Forbidden, but he said, And the great writer Clive Barker, who is so good that his stories come to life in reality. I mean, it would just seem really
well,
conceited,
for New Nightmare, it seems that what happens is that it's not that Wes Craven creates Freddy Krueger. It's that Freddy Krueger is a demon that kind of is almost like tapped, like. Freddy is this like archetypal demon that manifests itself through the movie that Wes Craven created. Yeah. It's like he reached out and put a little seed inside Wes Craven's head, and then he made the movie so he could break into our world. Oh, okay. Right? That's what I got out of the New Nightmare movie, because obviously, as the movie progresses, you find out that Freddy Krueger is just another name for a demon that's older than that, right? So,
well, and from then on, all Wes Craven movies were all about like self-referential horror, tropes and stuff, like Scream. I hated those Scream movies because it was all like, you better not walk outside alone.
Well, it kind of was I don't know. The first one, I kind of liked it. I thought it was. What are the
rules of horror movies? And it just, I don't know.
Yeah, but at the same time, it follows the rules, but then it breaks them, right? And it's a little bit, I guess. It's a little subversive, I think, because. I liked Scream. I thought Scream 1, 2, and I think 3. Yeah. And I think is there a fourth one, I think? I'm not sure.
There is. I think they are they working on one? Or I think there is something.
But to this day, I have to give them credit. There's a scene where they say, how many for Hellraiser and how many for this movie? And, people, hey, and they go like, all right, Hellraiser. Oh. So I think they pick Hellraiser to watch at a party, right?
They were
I think I remember that.
Rent. Yeah, yes. Well, and so they picked a movie that doesn't follow any of those tropes that they talk about in all of their Scream movies.
Well, I think Wes Craven made some really good films. I mean, some of them it's just a matter of taste, I guess. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Wes Craven made movies that were not horror movies as well. He made that one movie, Music of the Heart, which is a drama with Meryl Streep. So that one's not a horror film, but going back to Freddy.
He made a movie called Deadly Friend that I think was supposed to be a horror movie.
Oh, I see.
Have you seen that?
No, I haven't.
It's about a robot that befriends this kid, and I don't know.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it kills people. I can't remember.
I've seen Last House on the Left. I saw Nightmare on Elm Street. What else did I see?
There's The People Under the Stairs and Shocker.
The one with the family and the desert and the radiation.
The Hills Have Eyes.
The Hills Have Eyes. Yeah, I saw that, and I saw the remake. There was a remake of that.
Right.
So anyway, he started out being a professor, a teacher, an English teacher, I think.
Yeah.
And
well, he wanted to get into filmmaking, so he just went to New York and started working in the industry.
Right. And they made Last House on the Left in '72 for $70,000, and they made Nightmare on Elm Street for $1.5 million, which is kind of a giant feat to make such a good movie for just $1.5 million at the time, which was still like a low budget movie, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I love Nightmare on Elm Street, but I think that among the rest of his movies, that's the one definitely that stands out the most, at least for me.
In the book, they have a quote from Wes Craven where he says that the most extraordinary example, he talks about where he came up with the idea of teenagers dying in their sleep. And so he says, one of the most interesting things that I ran across was a newspaper article about young men who were dying in their sleep after having severe nightmares. Not just any nightmares, but nightmares where they would tell their family, I've never had one like this before. It's totally different from anything. The most extraordinary example was that of a young man who had such a nightmare, told his family, and decided to stay awake for as long as he could because he was convinced he was going to die if he slept again. Finally, he collapsed into sleep. His family carried him up to his room, and everybody else went to bed. In the middle of the night, everybody's dreaming away when suddenly there are these horrible screams. They run back to his room, and he's thrashing in his bed. They get to him and try to wake him up, but he falls still dead. So that's how he got the idea for the whole premise of this kind of demon that would infest teenager dreams to kill them, and they would die in real life. And I think I remember a time where I read this interview where Wes Craven himself explained where Freddy's image came from. And it was like he was a kid, and he was looking out of his window one night, and he saw this strange guy walking in the neighborhood. He had a fedora hat on, and then he was looking at him through the window, and somehow the guy stopped like he was being watched, and then he turned back and immediately looked at the window where little Wes Craven was looking, and he saw him there, and he stood there looking at him, and then he just walked away, and he had a fedora hat on, and that's how he created the image of Freddy Krueger. Wow. It's from that childhood memory of his.
Well, in this chapter, they talk about how he was the son of 100 maniacs and stuff. But that wasn't in the original Nightmare on Elm Street, right? That was added for the.
Yeah, I think that was after the at the Dream Warriors stage, right?
Something that I really like about the first movie that didn't happen in the sequels is like when Freddy would kill somebody, they didn't bother to try to make it look like some natural death in real life, right? Like somebody would, like in the sequels, if somebody was in the bathtub, then they'd drown or whatever, and when Freddy killed them, and it looked like they just were dropped their radio in the bathtub or whatever. But in this movie, it's like he's throwing them up in the air and slashing their chest open, and
pretty much most of the deaths in the Nightmare on Elm Street show are pretty gruesome, and I don't think they look like accidents. I mean, just look at that. Welcome to prime time, bitch. How would a woman, stick her head in the TV that's mounted on a wall, 10 feet up in the wall and die there?
Which one was that?
Oh, it was, the one in the hospital with the teenagers where the blonde girl gets grabbed by Freddy when he possesses the TV, and then he pushes her head into the TV that's mounted on the wall, and she dies.
But then in real life, she was dead like that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. She was dead on the TV, hanging from the TV.
I remembered that they were finding these convenient, ways to make it look like these people died of accidents or natural causes.
I guess some of them, like the guy who gets strangled with his own blanket in the jail cell, kind of looks like he hung himself.
That was the first one, yeah.
Right.
But didn't they have a video that showed that happening, or I can't remember.
Well, I definitely could use a rewatch of Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah.
I do have a box with all the 8 movies or 7 movies. Wow. I think one of them is not there. Maybe it is. I don't have it with me right now, but I do have a box that came out with all the movies that were made, except for the remake.
And Johnny Depp just could not stay awake no matter how hard he tried.
Yeah, and he returned in another movie in that scene where he says, "Here's your brain on drugs," and then he gets hit in the face by a pan by Freddy Krueger.
Really?
It's that scene where there's that really stupid death with the Nintendo controller.
Oh God!
And then Freddy says, "Now you're playing with power," you know. And he has his glove turns into a power glove.
So they had Johnny Depp playing himself as an actor on TV?
Yes, in one of those stay away from drugs commercials where he fries an egg and says, "This is your brain, and this is your brain on drugs."
It seems like you can't really do that if he was a character in the first movie, but...
Right. Well, in the first movie, he turns into a blood volcano.
Right. Yeah, I know. Yeah.
There's no way that they could say that was an accident.
Right.
But yeah, that movie introduced Johnny Depp. The first Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah, I bet.
This dreamy teenage kid.
I had heard, somebody was, I think it was someone on some interview, they were saying, can you imagine Johnny Depp screen testing the character for, what is the name of that pirate character that he plays?
Jack Sparrow.
Jack Sparrow. Yeah, because you can imagine that they had no, that's all him, and that they didn't want him to play it like that, like a drunk and stuff.
Yeah, well, I'm not a big fan of Pirates of the Caribbean.
No, I'm not.
I mean,
either.
I've seen the first couple of movies, but it's I have no idea. I didn't know. Actually, I didn't know that it was based off a ride by the Disney.
Yeah, right. I know.
Until I actually moved to the U.S. and went to Orlando, where I went to the Disney park, and it was one of the best experiences of my life.
And they also did a Haunted Mansion movie with Eddie Murphy, but that thing just tanked, and nobody ever talks about it anymore. But because of Johnny Depp, these Pirates of the Caribbean movies go on forever, and characters keep on dying and getting resurrected and dying some more and getting resurrected, and it's like a story that a 4-year-old would tell.
To me, it just seems like I know the most recent Pirates of the Caribbean is called Dead Men Tell No Tales, and the villain is played by Javier Bardem, and he plays yet another spirit zombie-like captain that looks like his face is breaking apart and stuff. Yeah. But it's okay. Well, you have the first one with forgot the name of the actor that played the first one. The guy who, when the moon hits his face, you see the skull and stuff, and he's all mummified. And then the second one has the guy with the tentacles in his face. And then now you have this Javier Bardem character. So it seems like it's always the same formula. It's Jack Sparrow gets into adventures. There's a cursed pirate ship, and then he has to do shenanigans.
But he wasn't even the main character in the first movie. It's just he's kind of like Pinhead. It's like these other main characters don't matter anymore. And that's how things evolve. I mean, that's why Pinhead was not supposed to be a main character of Hellraiser, and then the whole franchise kind of starts rotating around Pinhead. Yeah. And now you have things like the Pinhead Experience, which is going to happen in Mad Monster Party in Scottsdale. Right.
This weekend. I think maybe some people today were taking pictures with Pinhead at the Pinhead Experience. So I guess over the weekend we'll start seeing things pop up.
Yeah.
But speaking of Hellraiser, Nancy, the main character from Nightmare on Elm Street, is played by Heather Langenkamp, and she's going to be in Hellraiser Judgment. So I wonder what her character is going to be like.
Yeah, and if we ever get to see that movie, I guess we'll find out.
That's right. Yeah, hopefully this year.
Yeah.
But so, for you, I mean, did you see Nightmare on Elm Street as a teenager? Did you see it in the theater? Did you see it on TV?
No. I was in 4th grade when that movie came out, and so I knew one kid that had gone to see it, and I'm like, oh my God, my parents would never let me see that. So I didn't see. I rented it, I think, when I was like 20 or 25 or something like that.
So this was 1984. I do remember seeing it in the 80s. I don't think I saw it in 1984, but I saw this movie on TV for the first time. And I remember it really messed me up for at least a couple of years. Because it's like, Freddy's under my bed, or I can't sleep with my arm out of the bed, or Freddy's going to snatch me. And I really hated that.
That's pretty unnerving, that idea, too, that if you fall asleep, you're going to die. I mean, you can't win, right? That's
right.
Hopeless.
Because you can't not sleep, You can't do that. You have to sleep at some time.
Yeah.
But, I saw that movie when I was way too young. Probably shouldn't have seen it. But holy crap. I mean, that movie was just such a big – and later, when I was an adult, I got back to that movie and I saw it. And I was like, holy crap, this movie's really amazing. Because I think for me, what really sells the movie and in terms of like fear and being scary is really Freddy Krueger's makeup.
Yeah.
Because Freddy Krueger's makeup looks really amazing. It looks really realistic.
I liked when you'd see him in shadow and he's just kind of walking, towards Heather Langenkamp and dragging his claw along that pipe.
And his arms are super long, too, which is weird because it's like a dream kind of thing, right?
Yeah. Yeah, really cool.
And to me,
that stuff a lot better than his one-liners.
Oh, right. Later, but there's some one-liners that are just amazing. Like when that first movie, when Heather Langenkamp says something about, oh, my God, and he says, this is God. And he kind of raises his glove, and it's like, holy crap, that's such an iconic moment. Really, really good.
He wasn't cheesy. He was really just creepy and terrifying.
Terrifying, really. I mean, I think that in the later sequels, they kind of turned him into more like this, I don't know. I don't want to say slapsticky, but...
He is. He's the prankster of all of the slasher movies.
Right. I mean, there's that scene in one of those Dream Warrior movies. It's either the first or the other one, where there's this guy who has like a hearing device in his ear. And Freddy kind of messes with the earring device, and it becomes so loud. And then he drops these pins on the floor, and the pins just kind of they hit the floor, and it's like giant, metal beams falling down. Right. And it's such a loud noise that it blows up the guy's head.
Yes,
that's kind of silly, right?
Yeah.
Or that scene where someone thinks that they're falling off a plane, and then Freddy's also falling off the plane next to them, and it's, they just turned it into a little bit too much slapstick for me.
He kind of became like the Leprechaun, finding all these, silly ways to kill people. Didn't the Leprechaun jump on somebody with a pogo stick?
I think so. Yeah. I think so. Yeah, Warwick Davis.
Right.
Yeah. So the first one's really scary when you see Nancy's friend who was killed, the first victim of Freddy Krueger, and then she's like in the hallway, wrapped in plastic, dripping blood, asking for help. And then you see her being dragged down the school hallway and leaving like this giant bloody mark on the floor. That's the kind of stuff that you have nightmares about.
I take it back. I did see that in high school. I did a marathon, like when I was 20 or something, I did a marathon of watching all the other ones. But I
also the razor sharp claws that he has, right? The razor sharp claws are so scary and intimidating because they're the claws of the monster. Yeah. And not just that, but he doesn't have a gun that he can shoot you from afar. He has to get really close to you and look into your face while he's like sticking the knives into your body and slicing you up in ribbons, and it's just terrifying.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, did you see the remake of Nightmare on Elm Street?
I saw it, with that actor that played Rorschach in Watchmen.
Right.
Jackie Earle Haley.
I think the one thing that you can say about it is that it is like a dream, because as soon as you get out of the theater, you forget the whole thing.
Yeah.
I can't remember one single thing from that movie or any of the characters at all.
I know. It's first of all, I didn't really like the makeup that they came up with.
Yeah.
I had this friend, she kept calling it the wet cat Freddy because it looked like a wet cat.
Oh, man.
I know they were going for realism because when you see a person who's been in a fire and whose face got burned terribly, they kind of look like that. They kind of lose their features and their face looks melted, and obviously their skin is all scarred. But I still think that the makeup for Freddy in the original movie is the best.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
It's just the facial features of Robert Englund are just one of a kind, I think.
Can you remember any of the teenager characters from the movie?
No, they're pretty much just cutesy teenagers. One of them is like really emo guy, and the other girl is this.
I don't even remember that. I can't picture any of them.
It was a little contrived. Like the whole thing revolves around the fact that these kids were in a kindergarten, and the janitor was played by Jackie Earle Haley. He was Freddy. And then all these kids who went to kindergarten for a couple of years or whatever, they all forgot that they went to that kindergarten. They all forgot they had friends there because they were abused by Freddy. And then their parents kind of suppressed those memories or something. And it's I don't know how they would forget about that, because I can remember things from when I was 4 and 5 years old.
Yeah, me too.
But I didn't go through a traumatic event, so I guess that probably would do it. But, I thought, I don't know. I didn't think the story was as good as Wes Craven's original film.
So did the parents kill him then?
Well, yeah, I think so, right? Yeah. They just tell them that, oh, no, he just left town, but he didn't. They killed him, right?
Okay.
They surrounded him, and they burned down this place where he used to live or whatever. So
I'm
that's
talking about the remake. I don't.
Yeah. The remake. That's what happens.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And I think it seems like, and they're making another Halloween remake right now, but it seems like, I don't know, these remakes just sort of murder the franchises.
Well, this Halloween remake that you're talking about, I think it's going to have something to do with Carpenter.
Oh, really?
So that may not be a bad thing. I think he's going to be involved with that movie. From what I've heard.
It must take a lot of money to get Carpenter to stop playing video games and recording music and actually, come back.
Yeah, playing music with his son.
Yeah.
I know. Well, it's a really good character, and I think originally Freddy was not supposed to talk, and they were going to go for an actor that was going to be all big and beefy, and honestly, I don't think that was going to work that well, because it's not that I like the quippy joke-making Freddy, but I think Freddy needs to say some things. He can't just be the guy who shows up and slices people. It gets old pretty fast. I mean, the Michael Myers, the Michael Myers character, the shape. Okay, I love it. I think visually it's amazing. It's this one faceless thing. He's got no face because he's got a mask. He's got no outfit to speak of because he only has a jumpsuit. So it kind of erases his humanity out of the character. So he's just like this force, this unstoppable force. But Freddy, he has a very pronounced origin story, a very pronounced personality, and I think that really adds to the character and makes him more believable and more threatening, especially because when you consider that he was a guy who abused teenagers, right? I mean, that's scary as it is.
Well, and Michael Myers, I think. Well, I think Halloween. What makes Halloween good is the weird, the weird way it was filmed. Sometimes it's filming through the eye holes of the mask, or just hiding behind the bushes. The camera's hiding behind bushes and looking at somebody, and the music. So I don't know that a new remake can bring that back.
Yeah, I guess it depends. I think the trick to bringing back these franchises is to not try to remake the movie that was made before, but try to give it something that will reinvent it in a way that is not too derivative of the original.
Do you think that they would ever try to remake Nightmare on Elm Street, or is that just lost forever now? Once you remake a movie and do a bad job, then it's just gone.
Yeah, that's my complaint about these remakes, is that when they happened, I mean, they really didn't go anywhere else afterwards. I mean, there was a remake of Friday the 13th pretty generic teenager movie.
Yeah.
They get bumped off by Jason, blah, blah, blah. They did that for Nightmare on Elm Street, also not memorable. They did a couple of movies with Rob Zombie for Halloween that now the second one is considered, terrible, and the first one is just redneck Michael Myers, I guess.
Yeah, right.
It explained too much where he came from, I guess. It just explained it too much. So I don't know. I guess it depends. If they feel like enough time has passed, and if they feel like they got the right script, and
well, in the case of Halloween, it's not really been that long since the Rob Zombie movies.
Right. Well, I didn't really look at that for this episode, so I just remember reading about it, that Carpenter was going to be involved as a producer, and he was also talking to people who were going to write it and stuff. So I don't know. But there was something about these movies that kind of roots them in the 80s and the 90s for me. And I'm not sure that the 21st century can accept some of the tropes that made those movies work in the first place.
Yeah.
Nowadays people want to believe they have higher standards of suspension of disbelief,
Yeah. Yeah. Unless they totally just go for nostalgia.
Sure.
And that's become kind of a genre thing too now.
Yeah, well, but for nostalgia, you could always go back and watch the original movie.
Well,
that's real nostalgia there, because.
Right. But look at what is that Netflix series that's all takes place in the 80s?
Stranger Things.
Stranger Things, yeah. I mean that show was great, but
it was pretty fun, yeah.
But I guess it's all completely original too. I mean it reminds you of things from the 80s, but it's not completely just a remake of something.
Yeah. Weird movie was Nightmare on Elm Street 2. It's kind of like the odd man out of the whole franchise.
I was reading about that in this chapter, and I thought, I don't remember it being like that. I just remember it having this hokey ending about how love conquers all or whatever, and love can bring people back.
Well, you don't remember the character being like this bisexual / queer kind of kid, and
no,
you don't remember the teacher in S&M gear and the shower scene and all that.
No, I do. I mean, I watched them all in a marathon.
It's a pretty queer movie. Well, Nightmare 2, here's what it says in the book. It's a very creepy, very kinky film, says Robert Englund. It reverses the first one. Instead of having a teenage girl in jeopardy, we have a bisexual male, and this factor is exploited by Freddy. There's a lot of stuff implied with the S&M bar, stringing up the coach in the shower room in a bondage situation, and going to this boyfriend's house for protection. The two of them take their clothes off as much as possible. All that adolescent, mad teenage hormone stuff is explored, which, of course, Freddy is privy to. So, yeah, this is all in the movie. I think you have to rewatch the second one because it's a really strange and like you said, the ending is a little hokey, but the girl in that movie is John Merchant's wife in Hellraiser Bloodline.
Oh, she was not very good.
Yeah. Right? I think that's her. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's her.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, that's her. So it says here, Wes Craven says that about Freddy Krueger, he says, I just felt that Freddy was the paradigm of a threatening adult. Freddy stood for the savage side of male adulthood. He was the ultimate bad father. It's a sickness where youth is hated. Childhood and innocence are hated. From the very beginning, that's how I saw him. So that's how, from the mouth of the creator, that's what he felt about Freddy Krueger.
Yep. Yeah, I got to meet him. That was a super long line in I think it was at Mad Monster Party or Texas Frightmare Weekend. I can't remember which one.
Oh, you met Wes Craven?
No.
Robert Englund?
Robert Englund, yeah.
Oh, that's so cool. Yeah, you were so lucky.
He was a nice guy.
Well, unfortunately, going back to Wes Craven, he passed away in 2015, and we did cover that on the blog. On August 30, 2015, we reported at the time that with a sad heart that we at BarkerCast bring you the news of Wes Craven's passing this Sunday after a battle with brain cancer at 76. And we updated it with a Clive Barker personal tribute statement from his official Facebook page, where he said, "From the first time we met, Wes was a friend, generous in his support of my work and wonderfully witty when talking about the deceits and nonsenses he'd faced as he fought for his unique cinematic vision. Wes was a gentle iconoclast, a man whose sudden absence from the world has left me sad beyond words, but grateful to have known him while he was still with us." And if you go there, I added a video of a funny video where Wes Craven and Clive Barker and Dr. Ruth discuss the horror and sexuality in a TV show. And also, I believe that Horror Cafe video that you can find on Seraphim Inc.'s YouTube channel, I think that had Roger Corman, Wes Craven, Clive Barker, and a few other authors trying to come up with a story, right, for a movie.
Right. Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, so that was good. We'll have to add that to the show notes.
If you were looking for N for Nightmare in the TV series, it wasn't there. What we found is N is in at the end of episode 5, A Fate Worse Than Death, but it's called N is for Never Again, and it's about The Crow. And James O'Barr and the movie The Crow with Brandon Lee.
That's right. I have the comic book. I have it actually in my hand here. I have the Crow Special Edition, the definitive author's vision of the classic graphic novel with an introduction by James O'Barr. But you actually have the comic book issues of it, right?
Yeah, and I got them signed actually by him before the movie came out.
That's pretty cool, man.
Yeah.
So how was James O'Barr?
He was not. He wouldn't even make eye contact with me. I was the only one in line because nobody had heard of him, because the movie, hadn't come out yet. So.
Yeah.
So I went up there and he was talking to somebody and he just kept talking to this guy and just signed my thing without even looking at signed my comics without even looking at me.
That's not an uncommon criticism of James O'Barr from what I've heard from other people. I think he had a conflicted relationship with celebrity. I don't think he really enjoyed, being famous over The Crow. And he shows up in the show and you see him and he's kind of just staring in the distance while talking, and he always looks very depressed.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, he did.
But the comic book that he created is pretty good. I mean, if you're into this sort of story, it's definitely very dark. It's made in black and white. So it's just, he says here at the beginning that there were these Queen albums that he says, one of the inner sleeve credits of the first 4 or 5 Queen albums, the band proudly proclaims, "No synthesizers were used in the recording of this LP. I'd like to borrow that statement. No computers were used in the making of this book. Everything in here is ink on paper." Yeah. So my special edition actually has some pages that were remade after the original edition because he wasn't happy with the way some pages turn out. So he actually remade some of these pages. And at the end, you can see the before and after. So, yeah. He did go back to it. So this did spawn a very successful movie. I think the movie became very well known not just because of Brandon Lee's fate. He died during the shooting of a scene where this casing was stuck inside a gun, and so when the blank fire, the casing was shot out and hit Brandon Lee. Someone didn't check the gun before they shot the scene, so that's what happened. But I really love the movie. I have it on Blu-ray.
It's also Brandon Lee's by far his best performance ever. I mean, before that,
he was in B movies, right?
He was in Laser Mission, and there was one that was pretty cool with Powers Booth, Rapid Fire, it was called. And
unfortunately, Powers Booth, I am sad to say, he passed away this week.
That was kind of sad to see. He had in Rapid Fire, he had this line that he'd go, "Sons of bitches."
Yeah. But so this story was all based on this life experience that really affected James O'Barr tremendously. Was he was a teenager and he didn't have car insurance, and apparently the cops knew his car very well, and so he called his girlfriend one night and said, "Hey, can you pick me up? I don't want to get another ticket." And so she did, and unfortunately, on the way to pick him up, she got ran into by a drunk driver and died. And he always felt responsible for that. He always thought, what if I had just, took a taxi or walked home or called her 10 minutes later, So he needed some sort of outlet or closure or retribution from some sort of source. So what he did was he came up with a story where the drunk driver became a gang of guys. The girlfriend being ran into turned out to be like a couple driving that gets stopped by this gang. And, they rape and kill the girl, and then they kill the guy. But his spirit of vengeance is so strong that a crow brings his soul back from the underworld and resurrects him to take his revenge.
When I came out of the movie theater from that, I remember I went with a bunch of friends, and I remember arguing with them in the parking lot, saying, "This is not cool. Why did they change the ending? Why did they make like a typical action movie kidnapping situation, and then they put in this thing, if you kill the crow, you kill the man." And it's like, no, in the comic book, nothing killed the crow. Nothing could kill the man. He was untouchable. And I think it would have been, they're like, well, you can't have a movie with no climax. That's what they were arguing with me. And I would say, yes, you can. You can do anything you want.
Yeah, it's something that seems to happen every time a good story is adapted into a movie. Mm-hmm. They always feel the need to change it.
Yeah.
Which never made any sense to me, because if you have a story that became iconic and a cult story, why would you change it? Why change something that works? Why do you change something by adding a different storyline or something?
You got Tony Todd shooting the crow with a sniper rifle, and Top Dollar on a rooftop, holding the girl hostage. And at the time, there were so many 80s action movies that ended with the bad guy holding some woman hostage.
Yeah.
And it's like, what do you do? Do you shoot or do you put down your gun?
And usually they put down their gun, and then at the end it's something like, well, I don't need a gun to get you. I'm just going to get you with my fists. And there's a usually, in the B movies, there's always like the bad guy and the hero kind of square it off together.
Yeah.
In this one, there's a sword. So in the movie, so a little hokey, but I love the villain in this movie. The villain and his sister are amazing.
Yeah,
I thought.
And Tony Todd was cool.
Tony Todd, probably the first time I saw Tony Todd was in The Crow, before I saw him as Candyman, and he had a really strong presence. And honestly, the movie is visually very interesting.
It's still really good, despite those little niggling writing elements, or that they felt like they had to make it fit into a formula.
Yeah, I think that what you brought up was a good pet peeve is the ending. It's the little girl, and then she gets taken, and then there's this fight, and But then again, the Crow comic book, the ending, is kind of pretty much what you'd expect. There's no big surprises at the end here. He just basically throughout the comic, he just shoots all the guys dead.
Yeah.
And that's it.
And the ending of the comic, they don't even show the Top Dollar getting killed, right? He says, like, how many angels can dance on the head of a pin? And he says, like, it depends on the tune, and then you just assume that he's killing that guy?
Yeah.
I think that's how... I mean, I haven't read it in a while, but that's how I remember it.
But it's beautiful. The comic book is beautiful. Some pages look different than others. I think that's because some pages were redone after the original edition, like I said.
Yeah.
But, of course, the Crow went on to become successful comic character. I think there were other stories made with the Crow. And there were also other stories made from the movie, right? I remember seeing The Crow 2, City of Angels.
I didn't like that at all. I just figured it's another terrible movie sequel where they're turning, a good movie into a franchise.
Yeah. I got to see that movie because I knew Iggy Pop was in it. And then Iggy Pop's character is really weird. But I like the way he dies. Like floating down a river with, a few coins on him to pay the toll or whatever.
Was he a bad guy?
Yeah, he was a bad guy.
Of course, everybody in a Crow movie is a bad guy, just about.
And then ultimately, the kid from Terminator 2 became the Crow.
Was that the third one?
I think so, third or fourth or whatever. I didn't see it. Yeah. I just saw the first two. So that was it for me. But I understand why this story appeals to Clive Barker so much, I guess.
Did you say, if you want to shine him on, you say, hasta la vista, baby?
Yeah. Yeah. So there's two ends, Nightmare and Never Again. And that was it for the letter N, I guess. Do you have anything else to add about The Crow?
No. I mean, I think, I'll always have the movie. I'm still debating whether I would want to keep the comics, because I was thinking about it, and realistically, I haven't opened those in probably a decade. So maybe it's time for me to just kind of move on, and, I don't...
Sure. Send them to another good home, someone who wants to collect those, and you can get a good price out of them.
Yeah. So next we have O for Open Vein. This particular one, for some reason, there's certain types of language or descriptions of blood that make me kind of queasy, and this chapter was one of those. And watching this chapter of the TV series, also, I had a real hard time with it.
Oh, because you don't like blood, right?
Yeah, and they're talking about the texture, and they're talking, I don't know, and people worshiping it, and it just, Ugh.
Well, it's true, and this one focuses a little bit on this character called Elizabeth Bathory,
right?
The Blood Countess, who allegedly killed more than 650 young women for their blood. And I have to say, I think there might be some exaggeration here. This, you know how it is, like aristocrats, the village people never like them, so they end up coming up with these stories about them that kind of grow into folklore. Well, so I don't know how real this is.
I had always heard that she bathed in the blood of these virgins, so that thinking that she was going to get eternal life. And then in this chapter, it's like, well, that's one of the stories about her. But really, it was more like she just would kill people, and the blood would spray all over her and her white dress or whatever.
Yeah. So it says here that she was the daughter of aristocrats George and Anna Bathory. She was born on the Hungary-Slovak Republic border and raised at the family estate in Exit, Transylvania, which is, of course, the home of Dracula, the fictional character. As a child, she was subject to fits of rage and uncontrollable epileptic seizures, and then she married a count and, began a reign of terror by sadistically torturing her servants, often to death. So, holy crap, again... a mistress of the night here. I think they put her in the wrong chapter.
Right. Yeah, she's pretty horrible.
However, I was looking into it, and I discovered that her testimony, the testimony of her sadism, apparently is verified by more than 300 witnesses and survivors.
Oh, wow.
And they found, when they arrested her, they found some horribly mutilated dead, dying, and imprisoned girls. So, yeah, she might have been a serial killer. She might have been one of the first recorded female serial killers, I guess.
Right. There are almost none of those. I mean, none that are women.
It might be something in the water in Transylvania. I don't know.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right. Like Vlad Tepes would, if somebody wouldn't take off their hat at dinner, he would nail it onto their head.
Oh wow! Yeah, that's pretty extreme. That is pretty extreme. But there were rumors of her atrocities spreading out through the kingdom, and people started making complaints against her. Mm-hmm. And finally, they sent a couple of notaries to collect evidence in her castle. And then they got testimony from those 300 witnesses. And finally, they started preparing a trial. And they arrested her. And, often what she did was they would offer work as maidservants in the castle to these daughters of peasants. and they would be sent there, and then they would never be heard of again. And that's when they knew something was wrong.
It's amazing though. If it was 300 and something, it's like you'd think only like maybe 2 they would start.
No, 300 witnesses. Victims were 650.
Yeah, well, I mean, right, exactly. So, you'd think after the first couple that people would start wanting to investigate.
That's right.
Not 600.
Right, but she was, a woman that was a countess. So
right.
Being part of the aristocracy, that kind of gave her enough power to, do whatever she wanted. And the poor peasants would, they didn't really have anybody that they could ask to prosecute until they finally did, of course. But, it took a while
right.
before the local authorities decided to start complaining about it.
Yeah.
So I have to admit, I don't know a lot about the Countess Bathory, but I saw recently, and this is from someone who was in our podcast, Ann Bobby. She played Laurie in Nightbreed. And so the other day, on May 17th, she posted on her Facebook profile the story of this one guy from Romania. It says here, Gheorghe Doza was a Zichelli man-in-arms and, by some accounts, a nobleman from Transylvania, the Kingdom of Hungary, who led a peasants' revolt against the kingdom's landed nobility. He was eventually caught, tortured, and executed along with his followers, and remembered as both a Christian martyr and a dangerous criminal, which is kind of weird. During the reign of King Vladislaus II of Hungary, royal power declined in favor of the magnates, who used their power to curtail the peasants' freedom. But the story that I want to read is that after he lost this rebellion, he was captured in Romania, and it says here, as his suppression had become a political necessity, Doja was routed at Temesvar by an army of 20,000 led by John Zapolia and Istvan Bathory. He was captured after the battle and condemned to sit on a smoldering heated iron throne and forced to wear a heated iron crown and scepter, mocking his ambition to be king. While he was suffering, a procession of 9 fellow rebels who had been starved beforehand were led to his throne. In the lead was Doza's younger brother, Gergely, who was cut in 3, despite Doza asking for Gergely to be spared. Next, the executioners removed some pliers from a fire and forced them into Doza's skin. After tearing his flesh, the remaining rebels were ordered to bite spots where the hot pliers had been inserted and swallow his flesh. The 3 or 4 who refused were cut up, prompting the others to comply. In the end, Doza died from the ordeal, while the rebels who obeyed were released and left alone. Jeez. And so the thing that I was going to connect was that one of the guys in this article, I mentioned this article, was named Bathory, Istvan Bathory.
So was he the Duke?
He was an Hungarian noble, yeah.
Or the Count, was he her husband?
Yeah. He was part of the family of Countess Elizabeth Bathory.
So they're probably like, they probably thought what she did was pretty normal.
He was the grandfather of Countess Bathory.
Oh, okay.
He fathered Anna, who was the mother of Elizabeth Bathory.
Jeez. So
it seems like gruesome stuff ran in the Bathory family. Like they had these weird execution things that they did. And I'm not surprised that with a family like this, that the Countess Elizabeth Bathory turned out the way she did.
They grow up having no respect for human life.
Yeah. The other author that they talk about here in this chapter, apart from Elizabeth Bathory, to talk about the importance of blood, was Poppy Z. Bright, who was an author born in 1967 in New Orleans. He worked as a gourmet candy maker, mouse caretaker, artist model, and exotic dancer. The first novel written was Lost Souls at the age of 19, but it wasn't published until the age of 25.
Yeah.
I do have my first book that I read by Poppy Z. Bright was Swamp Fetus from 1993, which is an excellent erotic collection, erotic vampire anthology. It's really cool. It's got a lot of cool short stories. If you find it on Penguin Books, get it, because if you like Clive Barker, you're going to like Poppy Z. Bright. It's really amazing. The reason why I said he is because Poppy Z. Bright is now Billy Martin. He is a trans man and prefers that male pronouns and terms be used when referring to him. So Martin became famous in the early 90s with his novels, and then unfortunately his personal life became a little convoluted after dealing with gender dysphoria and transgender issues. He said that ever since he was old enough to know what gay men were, he's considered himself a gay man that happens to have been born in a female body. So that was the perspective he was coming from. But he retired in 2010.
Was Poppy Z. Bright always, was that a real name? Or was that a pseudonym? I mean, it kind of sounds like a pseudonym anyway.
I think it was the name. I think it was a real name.
Okay.
I think so. It sounds really strange, but I'm not sure. I think so. I would imagine it was a real name, not just a pseudonym. But Billy Martin retired from writing in 2010. Apparently, there hadn't been a lot of stuff written in those years. I mean, there were some things written in 2000, 2002, 2004, 2005. Okay, so there were a few things. I'm just looking at the novellas that were written. But then, unfortunately, in 2010, he retired. He said he had completely lost the ability to interact with his body of work. So he just said that he couldn't. He was very, very affected by Hurricane Katrina. He couldn't, it kind of, his life got really turned upside down, and he didn't feel the need to write anymore. So unfortunately, I'm sure he's a very happy man now, but he's not writing anymore. So I'm sorry about that, because I thought that the stuff that I read from Poppy Z. Bright or Billy Martin was really, really amazing stories. And I recommend that if you haven't read Poppy Z. Bright, go get Swamp Fetus or Lost Souls. So those are two amazing books.
I think that I've only read short stories, but not any novels.
Right, me too. I think I pretty much just read short stories by Poppy Z. Bright. But blood is very important in this body of work, because he talks a lot about vampires. I'm sorry if I keep saying she and then he, because I still think of Poppy Z. Bright as this pretty woman that wrote amazing fiction, and obviously that was part of who Billy Martin is.
A goth-looking woman, right?
That
would write about cutting and vampires.
Yes, exactly. So, and then the chapter goes on to talk about other kind of vampires, like actual vampires, or what we call vampires, that people that committed horrible crimes where they drank blood.
Right. Usually they had some kind of delusion that it would do something for them, that it really wasn't, like cure a disease or make them live forever. Or...
Exactly. And it goes on to mention the Marquis de Sade, Gilles de Rais, who actually appears as a character in the Hellbound Heart novella. He's supposed to be one of the guys who had a diary that Kircher talks about in the Hellbound Heart diary of Gilles de Rais and Bolingbroke. Anyway, so one of the earliest reported cases of a vampire was a German man called Sorgel, who during the 19th century killed a man out in the forest and drank his blood. Like you said, he thought it would cure his epilepsy.
What a terrible... I mean, geez.
I know, right?
God.
That's pretty weird.
I have arthritis. Maybe I should go murder some people.
You have arthritis?
Yeah.
Maybe you shouldn't live in Alaska.
Yeah. Oh, I know. Yeah, geez. It feels like getting my hand hit with a hammer when the seasons change.
Oh, that's terrible. I'm sorry to hear. Another one of these vampires was a guy called Victor Bertrand. And, that was really weird. He was convicted of opening graves in Paris and eating the flesh off the corpses, which is kind of gruesome.
That's not exactly the same as drinking blood.
Yeah.
It's even...
And it goes, and it goes on to talk about Fritz Hartmann, the vampire Dusseldorf, John George Haig, who was a guy in London who drank his victim's blood and then disposed of their bodies in a vat of sulfuric acid. And I have a book that has his final testimony where he talks about how he did what he did and how he did it. And he mentions killing his victims and putting the victims in a vat of sulfuric acid. And one of the things that he said was that from an early age he had these nightmares, and one of them was that he dreamt he was going through a forest. Here's one of his confessions. He mentioned he was involved in a car accident in March 1944, and this dream that he had as a boy returned to him. And the dream was that I saw before me a forest of crucifixes which gradually turned into trees. At first there appeared to be dew or rain dripping from the branches, but as I approached I realized it was blood. The whole forest began to writhe and the trees, dark and erect, to ooze blood. A man went from each tree catching the blood, and when the cup was full he approached me. "Drink," he said, but I was unable to move. So that was one of the dreams that he had. So he was kind of obsessed with this. And, he was sentenced to death in London. He was called the Acid Bath Murderer. Mm. So, died in 1949. There were other people like this. Like there was this guy called Chikatilo, serial killer in Russia, Rostov. He killed little kids and then kind of drank their blood, and then buried them. Chikatilo was very prolific murderer. Got convicted for like 55 or whatever people that he killed. Really, a lot of strange, crazy cookies out there.
Yeah.
Yep. So the vampire, obviously Dracula is a big deal. I mean, we talk so much about Dracula. And I guess everybody knows about Dracula, so I don't really go that much into it. But obviously there's also a lot of stuff in this chapter about Dracula.
They have 2 pages of that says Dracula.
Filmography.
Dracula's appearances in movies. And it's just 2 straight pages of just movie titles.
Yeah, and there was even that glamorous Dracula played by, what was the name of that guy? He played Dracula, but he's like a really handsome-looking Dracula. I forgot his name. Anyway, if you look at the book, it's pages 148 and 149. So you have all these, Count Dracula in the movies. You can go there and knock yourself out. Go find these movies and watch them. One I particularly recommend out of this list is the Dracula from 1930. Which is the Spanish version, because back then Universal was shooting a movie, and then they instead of dubbing the films, they would actually make a different version with other actors for the Latin America market. And since they already had the sets made, they would just cast it with Latino actors, and they would make a movie for the Latino market. So they made a Dracula when they were doing Bela Lugosi's Dracula. They also did there was kind of like a second unit. That wasn't really a second unit. It was a completely different unit. But after the work for the day was done with the Lugosi Dracula film, they would shoot the Spanish Dracula.
Oh, wow.
And it's considered by many, including movie historian David J. Scull, who appears in the BBC show episode about this O is for Open Vein. It is considered by some to be a superior Dracula technically, and sometimes even in performance in some parts,
Wow.
the Spanish Dracula of 1930. And I have it. It's on the Legacy Collection by Universal.
Wow.
So you can see it. It's pretty amazing. And the reason why it became better was because the Spanish crew and actors were seeing the dailies from the 1930 Lugosi Dracula, and so they were seeing what was coming out of the dailies, and they said, well, we can do better. And they would go and they'd make the scenes a little more dramatic, or they would, so yeah, if you can find 1930 Spanish Dracula, go see it because it's really good. It's from Universal.
Yeah, no, I've definitely never seen that.
Yeah, it's very good. It's very good.
So that is on episode 3? Yeah, episode 3, about in the middle of the episode. Of the TV series. And of course,
you're talking about the O is for Open Vein?
Yeah,
the BBC
O is for
show?
Open Vein is in episode 3 of the TV series, and we've got, we'll put the playlist in the show notes again, so you can watch all the episodes if you want to.
That sounds good to me.
Yeah. Coming up next, we're going to be talking about the body book. More A to Z of horror, because we just did M, N, and O, so we've got P, Q, and R, so we're getting near the end. Will be next. And then we've been kind of tossing around ideas for what do we want to do for episode 150.
Yeah, we'll have to brainstorm, but we're open to suggestions, I guess.
Yeah.
It's a landmark.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it was a big deal when we hit 100, and now we're coming up on 150 with no slowing down so far.
Yeah, and now we're weekly. So
yeah.
Yeah, so let's see what comes out. I would like to bring to your attention that Rob is back on our blog, and he's doing his Rob Scene of the Week. So please go ahead and check those links for his recent blog posts. And go check out our Gods and Monsters audio commentary that we put up a few days ago. Yeah,
and the YouTube channel, while we're adding episodes back in there, we'll also be shrinking them down to a lower resolution for the app. If you want to see them in there too, we'll be also putting them the other way on the new iPhone app, and Android one is coming soon. We haven't heard any updates about it, so that's probably a good sign. It means they're not having any trouble with it.
I need to get that Android app because I don't have an iPhone, so I have a Samsung Galaxy, and I can't wait to have that app installed on my phone and say, "Hey, we did this," right?
Yeah, I want to see it too. That's pretty cool. I might have to get some cheap Android device just so I can see it.
Sure.
And maybe put emulators on it or something.
Maybe that will help break into another segment of the market for the podcast and get more people to listen to us. And again, if you ever have any feedback you want to send us, you have a little tab on the right side of our website, which you can see both on your browser or your phone browser. And if you click that thing and hold it, you can send us a voicemail to Skype, and you can say whatever's on your mind.
Well, and another nice thing about the app is if you go to the iTunes App Store and you type in Clive Barker in the search, it used to come up with nothing. But now it comes up with one thing, and that's our podcast.
Yay!
Yeah, so, it makes sense that, Clive Barker's not really into iPhone apps, but somebody that may not be listening, used to traditionally listening to podcasts, maybe they'll, be searching on there for something Clive Barker, and they might find that.
That's right. So keep your ears open and install that app on the Apple Store. Is that what you call it, Apple Store, or is it the iStore?
It's the iTunes App Store, I guess.
iTunes App Store. Yeah. Thank you for that. That's a technical term.
And they have the Mac App Store for Macintosh. I guess just kind of like Windows has that now too.
All right. Well, I got a couple little vampire kittens who are waiting to suck my blood.
Okay.
So I was supposed to feed them like almost 2 hours ago, but I'm going to do it now.
Okay.
And thanks for listening to us.
All right, and this podcast having no beginning will have no end. You can find the show notes for this page and lots of Clive Barker news and features at www.clivebarkercast.com. Leave comments there or get them directly into the podcast by clicking the Send Voicemail tab on the right. Please follow us on Twitter at BarkerCast or at Occupy Midian. Like us on Facebook and join the Occupy Midian Facebook group. You can listen on the site or subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, Libsyn, TuneIn, Pocket Cast, Google Play, and Double Twist. Subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. Please take a couple of minutes to leave us a review on iTunes. It means the world to us and helps us spread the word about Clive Barker. The Clive Barker Podcast, or BarkerCast, is an independent editorial fan site and podcast that is not affiliated with or under contract by Clive Barker or Seraphim Films. This is a labor of love by the fans for the fans.
Thanks for listening.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, shit. I forgot to talk about The Killer Tongue, which is a movie that has Robert Englund and Doug Bradley. And
Killer Tongue?
Yeah, it's a horror story that involves a woman hiding out with 4 pastel-covered poodles in a desert gas station with the loot from a heist. While her boyfriend does prison time, a meteorite crashes near the station and transforms the woman into an alien being with a gigantic tongue, and her poodles are transformed into 4 drag queens.
That is weird.
The whole thing even gets weirder. Her boyfriend escapes from prison and also encounters the meteorite. Oh, yeah, the meteorite. Also, the meteorite comes down from space, falls through a diner roof, and a little crumb of it lands on her soup while she's eating it. That's how she gets turned into the Killer Tongue. And her boyfriend escapes from prison, meets the meteorite, and also a nun. She's converted into a sexy drum majorette. And
because of a meteorite.
Yeah, and Doug Bradley is wearing a wig in that movie.
Wow.
Oh, wait, no, it's Robert Englund that's wearing a wig. I guess they're both wearing wigs. Robert Englund has like a blonde wig, long hair. Doug Bradley has a short hair wig that's black.
Okay.
It's a weird film. Maybe we can make a commentary for that in the future.
Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah, it's a 1996 movie, so...
I can stick this part on the end as kind of like an outtake.
Okay, sure, why not?